to the store, I need to buy this, there's this on sale. I'm yet to meet a person who's greedy, who's rested and refreshed. The Sabbath is an antidote to keep us far from our work, to keep us from playing God, to keep us from greed. And then the fourth reason, the Sabbath helps us cease from enculturation. What is enculturation? It's probably a big word. I could not find a simpler word. So let me explain what enculturation is. Enculturation is a practice by which I want to be like everybody else. I just want to fit in. We used to think that only kids wanted to fit in. But the Sabbath makes it very clear that there are a lot of adults who also want to fit in, who are into enculturation. What does the Sabbath say about enculturation? Let me take you back a little bit in history. Up to the time of Jesus and the disciples and into the 2nd century, the Sabbath of the Lord, in case you are not aware, was the 7th day of the week. All through the Old Testament and into the 2nd century, the Sabbath was the 7th day of the week, just like God had it. And then come the end of the 2nd century, the Christian church, as it was growing, said to themselves, well, this is nice, but we are being identified by the Romans and the pagans with these Jewish people who crucified our master. So therefore, we want to keep our distance from them. We don't want to stand in solidarity with them. We don't want to be unique with them. So let's find a day when we can keep God's Sabbath, but not be identified with those people. And those people are not going to change from the 7th day of the week. So enter the church. And the church said, well, here are these people, these pagan people. They worship the sun on the day of the sun, which is Sunday, which is the first day of the week. So why don't we take the day of the sun, which is the first day of the week, and the concept of the Sabbath, which is biblical, and we will marry them together so we can keep Sunday as the new Sabbath. And in 321 AD, this is history, in 321 AD, it was sealed and signed to change the Sabbath from the 7th day of the week that God had created to the first day of the week, thanks to the church. And so today you have a whole world of people into enculturation. So I have to ask the question, if I really want to be refreshed and if I really want to be rejuvenated, do I want to be like everybody else? Go with the crowd? Good question. One way for me to really celebrate the Sabbath and be refreshed is to celebrate the Sabbath the way God wanted me to celebrate the Sabbath. And if that means I will be different, so be it. If that means you will be different, so be it. Because if we go to the book of Revelation, it talks about a group of people who choose to be different. Revelation 14:12. Some of you probably know this also. The verse says, here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. In other words, what the angel is telling John is, as time nears the end, this process of enculturation will become a phenomenal global problem. But there will be a group of people who would continue to keep the commandments of God. That talks specifically about the 7th day of God being the Sabbath and the faith of Jesus. So 4 things that help me to be refreshed and be very different and unique. I cease from my work. I quit trying to play God. I choose not to be greedy. And I don't buy into enculturation. You try that, you would have a great week. In fact, I dare you, if you have never practiced the Sabbath before, maybe some of you are listening for the first time, I challenge you just one time, Friday sunset, next Friday to Saturday sunset, 24-hour period, celebrate the Sabbath. Forget your work. Be humble. Don't play God. Don't try to be in charge. Playing God is, any of us trying to be in charge? We're trying to play God. Be content with what you have and be unique and see what happens. Now, if you think this is humbug, let me finish with a research study. Several years ago, and many of you medical personnel know this, several years ago, a gentleman, a researcher by the name Dan Buettner, discovered with this group of people that there were a few groups of people around the world who had quality of life and who had longevity of life. And so Dan Buettner and his team went globally and looked at the lifestyles of these 5 groups of people. And one of those 5 groups of people were a group of people called Seventh-day Adventists in Southern California, in a city called Loma Linda, California. And Dan Buettner's team began to research this group of people, about 9,000 Seventh-day Adventists, and they came out with a report. By the way, if you want to read Dan Buettner's report, you can buy the book. It is called The Blue Zones. The Blue Zones. You might want to really read it. If you want to live long, if you want to live well, The Blue Zones is a great book to read. But this is what Dan Buettner said, besides a lot of other things. Here's something, and I'm going to read it from their website, from bluezones.com. So the question is, how can you live like the American longevity all-stars? These guys are talking about people in Loma Linda, California. By the way, I've been there, and I think some of you have been there. There are people in their 90s and 100s who are always walking, who are always tending their gardens. They always have a smile, all kinds of things. And then Buettner zeroes in. How can you live like the American longevity all-stars in Southern California? Try these tactics practiced by the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California, to live measurably longer. How long? There's research, again, to show that Seventh-day Adventists who practice a lot of health habits live on the average 11 years, 11 years longer than the average American. Quality years, not 11 years in a nursing home, okay? I'm telling you that. 11 years longer. And then here is his punchline, and I leave you with this. A weekly break from the rigors of daily life, the 24-hour Sabbath provides a time to focus on family, God, camaraderie, and nature. This is how the American longevity all-stars in Loma Linda, California live. You like to live well?